Diverging from much of Hollywood's portrayals, the authentic cowboy existence, though not devoid of amusement options, was far less glamorous and joyous than you may think. Of course, there were some smiling faces among 19th century cowboys, the sharpshooting, rugged hero of the frontier, depicted in the Wild West lore, is an exaggerated legend. Cowboys in the historic American West undertook cattle drives and toiled on ranches, demonstrating exceptional equestrian skills derived from all walks of life, all of whom devoted themselves to tending the herd. Cowboy life in the 1800s was full of hard work, perilous circumstances, and monotonous tasks, accompanied by ample doses of dust, insects, and humble sustenance. Remember to hit the like button because it helps us a lot. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and press the notification bell to not miss the upcoming interesting videos. Cowboys didn't sleep much. The rhythm of a cowboy's day and night was centered around the herd, a ceaseless routine of safeguarding, herding, and tending to cattle. Whether on a cattle drive or engaged in ranch work, cowboys maintained vigilant watchfulness. With a typical watch lasting 2 to 4 hours, there was usually a rotation of men. This arrangement allowed for an intermittent rest, often totaling no more than 6 hours of slumber at most. Cowboys slept on bedrolls, portable mattresses fashioned from feathers, canvas, or waterproof tarpaulin. During drives or at the ranch, cowboys rested on the same bedrolls. These bedrolls, no matter the location, were likely full of lice and bedbugs. The Wild West was dusty. Amidst the herd, cowhands wore the same clothes day in and day out. As they corralled the cattle, those at the rear found themselves enveloped in a sprawling cloud of dust churned up by the animals. However, dirt proved an inescapable companion from any vantage point. When cowboys were done with a cattle drive or reached a settlement, they made their way to a much-needed and enjoyed bath. This occasion often coincided with acquiring fresh attire and unwinding at the local saloon. Life on a ranch occasionally offered respite from the dust, but not always. While certain ranches boasted grandiose estates, cowboys passed their days and nights within bunkhouses and other outbuildings. These were modestly better than being out on the range, yet numerous cowboys retained a preference for slumber beneath the celestial expanse, even when presented with the option of shelter. Cowboys had their own language. The language of cowboys was full of task-specific phrases, along with a notable dose of colorful expressions. Yet it also encompassed a rich array of slang. Metaphorical phrases like above snakes to denote vitality and hair case for a hat, respectively. In their interactions with various Native American tribes, cowboys seamlessly incorporated indigenous vocabulary. Within their linguistics, cowboys coined words for their firearms, horses, occupational tasks, and equipment. A rope could be called many things based on what it was made of and what it looked like. For instance, a lengthy rope crafted from white and black horsehair was called a pepper and salt rope. Cowboys' clothes were practical and protective. Cowboys wore hats, chaps, boots, and other hardy clothing to keep themselves safe on the trail and in the harsh elements. Hats exhibited regional variations, yet generally they all had brims to keep the sun out of cowboys' eyes. The taller the hat, the more shade it could provide. Chaps were worn over pants to keep the cowboys' legs safe, while American cowboys wore bandanas around their necks they could pull over their mouths and noses to keep the dust out. Cowboy boots, tailored with slender toes and heels so the cowboy's foot would fit securely in a stirrup but still have the ability to move should the rider need to dismount. Crafted from durable leather, these boots bore attached spurs, aiding cowboys in urging their horses forward. Rising tall along the lower leg, the boots were intentionally designed for protective purposes. Strength and intelligence were equally essential to survival. Cowboys earned accolades from their peers for their valor, physical acumen, endurance, and equestrian prowess, skill in the use of the lariat. The demands of their role necessitated robust physicality, enabling them to tackle tasks such as breaking in horses, lassoing cattle, and undertaking prolonged rides. The bravery exhibiting in pursuing stampeding herds or confronting adverse weather was complemented by the need for quick-witted decision-making, meticulous cattle care, and not panicking in the face of a crisis. This intellectual acumen often evolved over years of hands-on experience, but cowboys needed to be able to understand cow psychology, adept at anticipating cattle reactions, skilled in guiding herds to water sources, and techniques to avoid unnecessary risks on the drive. Laziness was not an option on the cattle drive, and any lapses were met with stern correction. A living example, one man who was caught sleeping under the chuck wagon was taught a lesson by being jabbed with a dead tarantula. A cowboy's horse was his best friend. A cowboy needed his horse to travel, guard, and haul on a cattle drive. Horses were expected to endure extended hours under saddle, difficult terrain, and extreme heat. Cowboys maintained their horses, caring for them along drives with utmost tenderness, developing bonds that unified steed and rider with centaur-like cohesion. A good horse meant a cowboy could keep watch at night, with only the most astute and well-trained horses entrusted with this role. The best horses made up the remuda, a collection of even-tempered equines thought to understand cattle as much as their riders. The money was decent, but the life was hard. Earnings for cowboys ranged from $25 to $40 monthly, a substantial sum for unmarried men unburdened by familial responsibilities. They'd spend their money on luxuries when they got into town, although any ostentatious purchases would likely result in ridicule. Certain cowboys prudently saved their wages, eyeing the prospect of acquiring cattle and securing their own plots of land. Notably, cowboys made the same wage regardless of ethnic or racial background. Beyond cattle drives, cowboys found employment on ranches or within local communities whenever opportunities arose. Cowboys traveled for thousands of miles. A coordinated force of 8 to 12 cowboys was essential to maneuvering 3,000 head of cattle, making for cohesive groups of young men traveling across large stretches of land with a common goal. Within this framework, a system of hierarchy prevailed, headed by the trail boss. The trail boss decided how many miles the drive would tackle in a day and where the group camped at night. There was also a second in command, a segundo, accompanied by a cook and a complement of wranglers. Isolated cowboys were particularly vulnerable to attacks and the elements, but also evoked fear and suspicion when they were spotted out on the plain. Most cowboys didn't carry guns to fight. Cowboys were armed with guns, but those guns were used for protection more than confrontations or quarrels. The utilization of guns was often directed at repelling wolves, coyotes, warding off hostile native groups, or deterring potential thieves, but for the most part, guns were primarily used in the event of a stampede. When a stampede erupted, cowboys were compelled to pursue the lead animals and bring it to an end. Once they caught up with the front of the group, they would fire their guns at the cattle to get them to stop. The portrayal of cowboys wielding dual six-shooters, a Hollywood creation, but cowboys often carried multiple weapons. There were hundreds of kinds of guns used by cowboys over time, and most men preferred to have short sidearm and a longer rifle at their disposal. Cowboys were a diverse lot. The roots of the American cowboy trace back to the rich ranching traditions of Mexico and Spain. In the 1700s, Spanish ranchers enlisted vaqueros, originating from vaca, the Spanish term for cow, to oversee their land and tend to cattle. These vaqueros were indigenous Mexicans renowned for their expertise in herding, roping, and riding. By the 1800s, a tide of European immigrants migrated westward and joined the ranks of cowboys. No longer a vocation for just Mexicans, there was a large amount of diversity among cowboy groups. African Americans, Native Americans, and settlers from all around Europe collaborated alongside Mexican vaqueros, often picking up the skills they needed to thrive and survive along the way. The isolation inherent in cowboy life nurtured a particular form of egalitarianism that transcended racial and ethnic distinctions. In this predominantly male milieu, the values of hard labor and robust physicality eclipsed all else, fostering an element remarkably devoid of discrimination. What did cowboys eat in the Old West? There wasn't much variety in a cowboy's diet. Chuck wagons accompanied cattle drives, and cooks, legendarily grumpy but beloved companions, served staple foods like bacon, beef, bread, beans, and coffee. Cowboys typically ate twice a day, once in the morning and again in the evening, but sometimes a third meal occurred as well. Additionally, most cowboys weren't gluttonous, eating enough to get full but not overindulging for fear of an upset stomach or running out of food on a long drive. Cowboys sang to the cows. Rising with the sun, cowboys welcomed the new day, typically avoiding late nights while reserving their evenings for storytelling and camaraderie. Around a campfire, they engaged in the twang of fiddles and harmonicas, exchanged jests, and unwound after a taxing day. During their vigilant watch, cowboys talked to the cattle, recounting narratives or soothing them with songs. These songs often took spontaneous form or were handed down through generations of cowboys, perpetuating tales and capturing diverse facets of cowboy life. Please like and share if you find the video content interesting and useful. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment below so as not to miss the upcoming interesting videos. Thanks for watching.